Santana. Ooh, I wanna have ya. Tanaka's Fakakta, Jag like Michael Walker, Polanco and Franco. Where'd you go to get into first place? Check batting ball data and swinging strike rates. Raisins on shriveled grapes. Here's Adam's happy place.
Happy Kokomo Friday and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today, presented by Line & Kugels. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott White, and I need the podcast more than ever, Scotty. I've been distracted all day, all night by this damn Dogecoin thing. I sold off too early. I tried buying back in. I have no idea what I'm doing. If anybody out there with crypto experience wants to help me, please, you know where to find me. Twitter at roto_Frank. Email us. Frank.Sample@cbsinteractive.com, because I have no idea what I'm doing and I need all the help I can get. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing fine.
Hopefully,
I don't have any money in Dogecoin, so that's
good.
that probably helps me feel fine. But yeah, I'm good. I'm great.
Yeah, it definitely helps because it's been a stressful day. Stressful in a good way, but whatever. Enough of that. Today on the show, we have our Week 4 preview. We have prospects to stash. Scott wrote a long article about it. 14 different prospects that you should be holding in different types of leagues, from shallower to deeper ones. We'll talk about those a little bit later on. And of course, the Thursday recap. So let's get things started with the oh my goodness gracious player of the day.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Why don't you kick us off here, Scott?
Oh, me. You had the bigger one, I thought, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Jake Junis, as he's known on CBSSports.com. Jacob Junis, as you may know him on other sites. Royals pitcher. I talked about him after his first start, which looked pretty solid in that first start, and how he had kind of changed his arsenal a little bit, introduced a cutter to it at the insistence of pitching coach Cal Eldred, because he felt like Junis's arm angle was ideal for a cutter. He looked really nasty in this second start, which against the Blue Jays, so a good offensive team, 2 earned runs in 5 innings, struck out 6, had 11 whiffs, 7 from that new cutter on 81 pitches. So that's a good whiff rate. 2 really good starts in a row, and he leaned on that cutter even more in this start. I got to actually see the cutter for the first time, thanks to Rob Friedman, the pitching ninja. He was salivating over it. Yeah, it looks pretty nasty. It looks pretty filthy. I think last I looked, Junis's rostership, I think, was still under 20%. So he's widely available. And I didn't pick him up anywhere after kind of touting him last time. Wish I had, because now there's going to be more competition. I think it's something you might want to do. I want to do it.
Yeah, I see you with the meme game on Twitter, Scott. The Drake memes scouting Jake Junis versus picking him up. So I did enjoy a little bit of that. Yeah. I thought he looked good.
This is how lame I am. I knew of the meme. I knew I wanted to use that meme. Didn't know who the guy was in the meme.
I was about to ask you, do you know who Drake is, Scott?
I mean, I've heard the name Drake. I didn't recognize him. Yeah, I had to do some interesting Googling to figure that out, but I eventually figured it out. Got the meme. Yeah, go check it out. Twitter.com @CBS Scott White.
Well, you've got a long weekend ahead, Scott. So if you want to dabble into Drake's greatest hits, feel free to familiarize yourself with him. I thought Junis looked good as well. It was only 81 pitches. He did have 11 whiffs. You mentioned all of that. Really only 2 pitches. 67% fastball in this start, 31% cutter. It's working for him thus far. I just wonder.
He has a slider. I mean, the slider used to be his swing and miss pitch, and he threw more of them in the first start. I think the cutter was just going so well he didn't need it in this start.
Yeah, makes sense. He is 14% rostered. So you mentioned the roster rate was under 20%, and his next start is scheduled to come against the Tampa Bay Rays at home in Kauffman Stadium. So that's really not a bad matchup. The Tampa Bay Rays are struggling quite a bit. Maybe they'll have Wander Franco in their lineup by the time he faces them. We're still awaiting to find out more about that. Scott, how about among these starting pitchers who are rostered in less than 30% of leagues, where does Junis rank among them? Anthony DeSclafani, Alex Cobb, Michael Fulmer, who we will talk about a little bit later on as a 2-start pitcher, and Junis. Where would he rank among that group?
I'm looking back at that first start. He actually didn't throw the slider. I think I don't know if it was divided. You know, the way the pitch tracking worked, they misread. I don't know. I don't know if it was cutter slider before and then they combined them since then. I don't know. But anyway, I missed your question. What was it?
Among these 4 starting pitchers that are rostered in less than 30% of CBS leagues, how would you rank them? DeSclafani, Alex Cobb, Michael Fulmer, and Jake Junis.
I would go Cobb. I don't know. The first 3 are pretty close. Cobb, Fulmer, Junis. Junis, Fulmer. Cobb, Junis, Fulmer.
No love for DeSclafani, huh? Swinging
And
strike
then
rate.
well, you know,
Up for him.
I'm not. I think there's a chance DeSclafani would be good. The Giants have a good track record with pitchers like that. I think he's the easiest to leave on waivers right now. I don't like his matchup for the upcoming week. For what it's worth, I mean, just Fulmer is a 2-star pitcher for this next week, and it's good matchups. So maybe that's enough to slot Fulmer ahead of Junis.
The Pirates and the Royals, I believe.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. If he goes off, if he has 2 great starts next week, Fulmer, you may not have another shot at him.
All right. Jake Junis for Scott. Oh my goodness gracious. And we've got to talk about Patrick Corbin because, oh gosh, going up against the Arizona Diamondbacks lineup that did not include, obviously, Ketel Marte, Cole Calhoun was sitting out, and Christian Walker is also on the IL. The final line for Corbin in this start, 2 innings pitched, 6 hits, 10 runs. 9 of those are earned, so must have been bad defense behind him. 4 walks to just 1 strikeout. The fastball velocity right around 90 miles per hour for Patrick Corbin. That's where he was at basically all of last year. He has given up 15 earned runs over his first 2 starts, Scott. He has allowed 32 earned runs over his last 6 starts dating back to last season. What do we do with Patrick Corbin?
I think I'm done. I think I'm done with Patrick Corbin. The velocity that was down 2 miles per hour last year, it hasn't picked up, and he's just kidding. But it was the most hittable pitcher in baseball last year. And by that, I mean he led the majors in hits allowed. I guess there are different ways you could measure that, but that's what I mean by it. And I think he had the highest whip, too, of qualifying pitchers. So
correct.
He was bad, and it's not looking any better. I actually wrote about 12 worrisome starting pitchers and kind of gave my concern level for each of them. Corbin was in the highest, at the highest level of concern, which was red, like a stoplight. Here's what I wrote prior to this start. Let's give him another start or 2 just to be extra super duper sure. But I'm thinking this one ends in a drop. I don't think we need an extra 2 starts. I think just the 1 will suffice. I would drop him for Junis. I would drop him for Fulmer. I would drop him for anyone higher and than that, obviously.
Wow. So you're just completely done. It's over. So when we look at your rankings the next time you update them, Scott, Patrick Corbin will be basically outside of your top 75 starting pitchers. Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
All righty. You heard it from the man himself. We are done with Patrick Corbin. And I don't really...
Are you? I'm not going to speak for you.
I don't have anything to defend. Like, what can I say to defend Patrick Corbin at this point? Outside of the fact that, okay, it's 2 starts, but it's also 2 starts dating back to last year, as I highlighted. Didn't look great in the spring either. You probably invested not a good amount, but something decent, a top 10 or 12 round pick in Patrick Corbin. So I understand maybe if you want to see a few more starts just because of that reason, but this is the time of year where if you don't pick people up, you might miss out on the next breakout for the entire season. So I'm with you. I really, there's nothing that I can say to defend Patrick Corbin at this point. So yeah, I'm going to be dropping him way down my ranks as well. Patrick Corbin, you heard it here. We're done. Scott, you were not on the podcast yesterday. Obviously, Carlos Rodon threw a no-hitter, was a few inches away from being a complete game if he didn't hit Roberto Perez on his foot with a slider that got a little bit away from him. Just your thoughts on Carlos Rodon in general and how high he's moving up your ranks.
So he's in, I think he's just outside my top 40 now, just outside my top 40, which, I mean that meaning I'm high on him. Hopefully that's what that sounds like. I know sometimes people, after you move a guy way up, they're like, why do you only have him here? And it's like, well, come on. I mean, it's 2 starts, but it's been 2 very impressive starts from a guy who was long thought to have potential, a 3rd overall pick, of course. And didn't quite take off his first few years. Then he had the Tommy John surgery, came back last year, didn't seem quite right. Awesome in spring training. New pitching coach for the White Sox. Tweaked his delivery. And this is the pitching coach. This was Lucas Giolito's high school coach. And Giolito's credit him for allowing him to take off a couple years ago when, remember, it looked like for a while there, Giolito, formerly the top pitching prospect in baseball, was going to be a lost cause. So similar situation here for Rodon. It has the great pedigree. It's been longer since we've thought of him in that way, but it's still there. And, incorporating his lower body more, not throwing across his body anymore. It's made the delivery more repeatable. It's given him better command. And I think the most impressive part about this start specifically was how he picked up velocity the deeper it went in. Like, he was 92, 93 miles per hour in the first 3 innings. Then it was up to 94, 95 in the next 3. Then it was more like 96, 97 in the last 3. And he clocked 99 in the 9th inning. And it's like, if he has that kind of gas in reserve, why shouldn't he be like a workhorse for the White Sox on top of everything else? I feel like Tony La Russa's got to be seeing that and thinking the same thing. And the whiffs picked up as the velocity picked up, because he started out not missing many bats, and I was getting, well, I don't know. He struck out 9 last time, but he ended up with, I think, 18 or 19 whiffs, which was even more than he had in that 19 strikeout start, or that 9 strikeout start. So yeah, I see a lot more to like than to dislike.
Scott moved Carlos Rodon up to SP 45 in his ranks. And how about this? I didn't even look at your ranks today, Scott. I was updating mine. I have Carlos Rodon at SP 46. So 1 spot behind you. He is inside the top 50 for both of us, as is Trevor Rogers, who we will talk about a little bit later on as well. But first, hey, FBT listeners, March Madness and the Masters may be over, but the sports calendar never sleeps. There's the NHL trade deadline, daily NBA, NHL, and MLB action, the RBC Heritage Tournament, NFL draft news, and so much more. And CBS Sports HQ is your home for all of it. CBS Sports HQ is the only sports news streaming service that's completely free. How do you watch CBS Sports HQ? Easy. It's available for free on your computer, your mobile device, or your connected TV via the CBS Sports apps. If you're more of a YouTube person, subscribe to CBS Sports HQ on YouTube for all the latest sports news videos on demand. And I mentioned it there, the CBS Sports app. If you don't have it on your mobile device, get it. You can watch HQ on there. You can read all of our articles. It's not just stuff from the MLB side, like the MLB side of CBS Sports. It's the fantasy side. You can read all of our articles there. So there's a lot going on in the CBS Sports app. So make sure you download that as well. Some news and notes from Thursday. The Padres intend to activate Fernando Tatis Jr. on Friday. And I guess I got to eat my hat, Scott, because, man, I've been I've been getting tweets. I've been getting emails, people in the YouTube chat, YouTube comments. It doesn't matter. You name it. I've gotten it. So I said it when it first happened. If he's activated in 10 days, I will eat my hat. Scott, what is the best way to cook a hat? I don't even know.
I don't know either. A pan full of butter, that works for most things. Bacon grease. Which hat? You gonna get rid of that Rangers hat finally?
Yeah, my Rangers are off to a bit of a slow start, but good thing I'm a White Sox fan too, right? So they just had a no-hitter, obviously. I'm going to the Yankee game Friday. That should be fun. If anyone has any fun recipes for how I should eat my hat, let me know. The Blue Jays placed Jordan Romano and Ross Stripling on the injured list. Anthony Kay started on Thursday. Scott, is it safe to say that Rafael Dolis is definitely the next man up for the Blue Jays in terms of 4 saves?
Well, I know better than to say that, because I've lived in 2021, my friend. And
nothing in life is definite.
It's been a wild ride, but Dolis got 5 saves down the stretch last year after Romano got hurt. And I don't know why the same manager wouldn't turn back to him now that he's faced with that same, obviously Julian Merriweather out with a hip injury, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On the IL.
So yeah, he's without Merriweather. He's without Romano after losing last year. It was Giles and Romano. And Dolis was third in line. I think Dolis will be third in line again. And how will he do? I mean, he had a 150 ERA and 11.6 K per 9 last year, but walked a lot of guys. I think more innings than not, Dolis will not allow a run, and that's, as long as he does that, then he'll probably be fine. He'll probably get saves. So it might only be a short-term stay in the role, but I think if you're looking for saves, it seems like a pretty good bet for them for at least the next couple weeks.
How much fab would you spend on Dolis in a category league, Scott?
Man, it depends on the league. And look, if Yimi Garcia is still out there, you got to take Garcia first, right?
For sure.
Certainly if Emmanuel Clase is out there, and that's in like 1/3 of leagues. You got his 3rd save today with Karen Shack and with Green going right before him. So obviously him before, Yimi Garcia before.
Trevino over Dolis.
Yeah, I would take Lou Trevino because that it has a chance to be longer term. And again, maybe Dolis isn't the one to get saved. We can't say until he's getting them. But I think right after that, right after like the Trevino range, that's when you prioritize Dolis and I don't know, spend $2 or $3 on him. It depends how badly you need him, but I wouldn't blow the whole budget on a guy who might get 2 saves and then he's out of the job again.
Would you rather have Dolis or Kendall Graveman, who picked up a save for the Mariners on Thursday?
Yes, I knew there was someone we were forgetting. I would say Graveman because there's a chance it's a longer term thing. Now, for what it's worth, Scott Service after the game said, okay, based on the batters coming up in the 6th, this was 6th and 7th inning, right? Because it was a doubleheader.
Yep.
6th inning, it made sense to bring in Montero there and then go to Graveman in the 7th. So he was talking about it like it was a leverage thing. Maybe, but Montero's already blown 3 saves. Graveman has yet to allow a run, and I think has only allowed like 1 or 2 hits, right? And it just seems like, as with the Merriweather situation, all the momentum's with Graveman right now, and it'd just be very easy to keep going back to him. Yeah, 1 hit so far in 6 innings. Graveman throws really hard. He's never been much of a bat misser. Maybe that's changing. I don't know. I see people talking about him like he can miss bats, but I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. But is he good enough to get the job done? I think he is. So yeah, I would go with him. Graveman behind Trevino, but ahead of Dolis.
Johnny Cueto landed on the IL with a grade 1 lat strain on Thursday. Does this mean Logan Webb is headed back to the rotation, Scott?
I think eventually Logan Webb will be back in the rotation, and this might be the easiest path in. Yeah, he relieved Cueto the other day, right?
Yes.
So if he does just take Cueto's spot, I think he'll line up for 2 starts next week. So that'll be fun. Hyping him as a 2-start sleeper again.
That is Logan Webb. They already mentioned that Alex Wood is returning on Sunday, and he will be starting against the Miami Marlins. Alex Kirilloff was optioned back to the Twins' alternate training site on Thursday. Nomar Mazara was placed on the IL for the Tigers. This should mean more playing time for Victor Reyes and Jacoby Jones. Tim Anderson returned for the White Sox. He went 2 for 5 with a run scored. Will Myers, they said he was going to try and play on Thursday. That did not happen. He remained out for the Padres. He is dealing with patellar tendonitis. Byron Buxton and Josh Donaldson were both out of the lineup for the Twins on Thursday. Buxton continues to nurse that hamstring. I knew there was a reason why Chris didn't want to be on the podcast tonight. And the White Sox are hopeful that Dylan Cease will be able to make his start on Friday against the Red Sox. Last but not least, Mike Matheny we love the way Mike Matheny is using his bullpen, but he did have an update for Adalberto Mondesi, which is not really an update, but he said he's, quote, starting to do more movements. What does that mean? I
don't know.
absolutely
I
no
don't know. Did he just wake up from a coma? I don't like. I was thinking. I tweeted it out. The scene from Kill Bill Volume 1. Wiggle your big toe. I don't even know if that's a good impression. I saw that movie 15 years ago. But how do you forget the wiggle your big toe scene? Yeah, that's what I imagined Mondesi was doing.
Well, Scott, you can't forget the scene if you've never seen the movie. So
Exactly. Wait, no. You've never seen it?
I've never seen Kill Bill, but I saw your GIF earlier on Twitter and I thought it was pretty funny. So just add it to the list of great movies that Frank has not seen. Mondesi, of course, is dealing.
It's an overstatement, but that's fine.
Mondesi is dealing with that oblique injury. There's still no timetable for his return. Some interesting pictures on Thursday I wanted to highlight here earlier in the podcast, and probably could have included Chris Paddock as my oh my goodness gracious player, but I think Patrick Corbin was probably a little bit worse. I think Chris Paddock is still broken, Scott. And I watched his entire start on Thursday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Solid matchup. Should have been able to perform decently well against them. And the final line, I mean, it might look all right, but he really was not good in this start. 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 runs. Only one of those were earned. There's a really bad error in right field in the final inning of play. That was not his fault. But 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Paddock had 11 whiffs on 99 pitches. He threw his fastball, which is, I think, a very average fastball at this point. It's 93, 94 miles per hour. It's straight, doesn't have a lot of spin rate. He threw the fastball 73% of the time. He only threw his curveball 7 times in the start. He's missing his spots. Does not look like he's pitching with any confidence. I dropped him outside of my top 40 starting pitchers, Scott, and look, I'm not dropping him in general off my fantasy team because some people are asking me, is it time to drop Paddock? I'm not doing that. If Trevor Rogers or Carlos Rodon is available, sure, I'll drop Chris Paddock for either one of those guys.
It's pretty shallow league, so yeah.
Yeah, but what I'll say about him is if you can trade him for somebody who is a proven commodity who's off to a slow start, maybe it's not another pitcher, maybe it's a hitter, you're looking in another direction, I would look to do it. If you could just trade him based off of his name value, I don't know what you're going to be able to get, but I think there's a chance that if Dinelson Lamet's healthy and they want to call up Mackenzie Gore, Chris Paddock could be out of this rotation by early May. I really don't think that is some kind of hot take. So do you have any opinions on Chris Paddock?
Yeah, that would be interesting. Do the Padres give up on him sooner than you do in fantasy? So Chris Paddock was also on the worrisome, among the 12 worrisome pitchers I wrote about, and he was also concern level red. And basically, I mean, you summed it up. I went back and read some of the literature from spring training where we were starting to get excited about him again. Oh, yeah, I looked at some video from 2019 because they pointed out and I need to regain the spin on my fastball. And maybe it's a work in progress. You know, maybe it's not an overnight thing. The spin's back. That's all I'm holding out hope for, though, at this point, because, yeah, the fastball spin, without the spin he had in 2019, it doesn't seem like it's an effective enough counter to his really good changeup. And the changeup is kind of only as good as the fastball, right? To a degree, it has to change up something. So, yeah, I'm. It's not like Corbin where I'm to the point of dropping him, as you said, but I don't want to start him right now. And I think that's yeah. If you can target some other slumping player, and it's like, you know, change of scenery for both of these guys. But they were, somebody basically who was equivalent to Paddock's draft cost. So you're not really losing anything, but it's a player you trust much more to bounce back. I think that makes sense.
Charlie Blackmon was a name that came to mind. And that's actually a trade that I'm trying to make in a league right now, in a roto league. I think it's fair. I mean, Blackman's off to a terrible start. He's not in the lineup on Thursday either. He's older. So I guess there's a chance that, someone might be concerned he's done. So that's
go look at maybe I could just rattle off the 12 names from that. Like if you wanted another pitcher, I'm sure the Strasburg owners freaked out now. And I think for good reason, that's another concern level red one, but I have more faith in Strasburg bouncing back than Paddock. So I would be okay doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Luis Castillo, Well, some of these pitchers actually have the ERA has been fine. So like Walker Buehler, the ERA has been fine, but the velocity is down. It's scaring me. So I don't think you're going to be able to trade for him. But maybe Blake Snell,
Not one for one,
maybe
but
Zach Plesac.
if you can pair like a hitter,
Max Fried being on the IL, actually Max Fried is concern level green for me. So I'm not even that worried about him.
Yeah, I think for those pitchers in particular, Scott, if you can pair a player with Paddock and to try and upgrade there, something I would look into doing. Trevor Rogers was at the Braves on Thursday, 5 innings pitched of 2-run balls, 7 strikeouts, 14 whiffs on 95 pitches. I don't know that there's anything to add, Scott, outside of our confidence is building in Trevor Rogers.
Yeah, the velocity wasn't as good in this start as it was in the last one. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to sustain improved velocity on the fastball, but he did throw his slider a lot for the third straight start. It's clear he has more confidence in that pitch, and it's not just fastball changeup anymore. He took the step that Chris Paddock didn't take, and is seeing better results as a result.
How about on the other side of that start, Scott? Ian Anderson, obviously going up against the Marlins, 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 runs, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts. The whiffs were still really good. 16 whiffs on 98 pitches. The strikeouts have been there for him basically all season. But he has allowed 7 earned runs over his last 2 starts, and he hasn't gone more than 5 1/3 in any start this season. Ian Anderson is the name. Any concern?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't enjoyed having Anderson very much yet, but I don't really see any reason for concern. 4 walks, okay, that's not great, and his walk rate wasn't good either, but there were only a combined 3 walks in the first 2 starts, so I'm not ready to say that's a problem for him. Like you said, the whiffs have been there. The pitch mix has been comparable to last year. I think he's going to be okay.
Michael Pineda was going up against the Boston Red Sox. 7 shutout. Ooh, what a start here. JD Martinez was not in the lineup, so I'll highlight that for the Red Sox here. But only 2 hits, 1 walk allowed, 6 strikeouts for Pineda, 15 whiffs on 88 pitches, including 10 on the slider. Over his first 3 starts, 17 strikeouts to just 3 walks for Pineda. So the control has been great. The velocity, however, Scott, remains down. It's down about 1.5 miles from last year. And obviously Pineda hasn't thrown more than 146 innings since 2016. So I'm wondering, like, the velocity combined with the injury history, do we have a sell high on our hands here with Michael Pineda?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it.
Or should you just reap the rewards and keep him on your team?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think, yes, the velocity is down for Pineda. He's survived a big velocity drop before, and the results have been great so far this year. So, I just think his slider's so good. He commands so well. He's probably going to be okay. But would I trade him for a Max Fried, for instance, a Jesus Luzardo, some of those?
Would you trade him for Ian Anderson? Straight up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. So if you can do a trade like that, then yes. But I don't think there's anything wrong with just holding Pineda either.
Sure. Yeah, I had him as a sleeper candidate coming into the season. I know you liked him as well, so good job, Michael Pineda. Appreciate it, buddy. Aaron Savali was at the White Sox on Thursday. 6 innings pitched of 1-run ball, only 4 strikeouts to 2 whiffs, 9 whiffs on 99 pitches. I liked Savali coming into the season, Scott. There are times where I think he's kind of smoke and mirrors because he doesn't get a lot of whiffs. But for the same reasons I liked him, he has a deep pitching arsenal. He's throwing 5 different pitches more than 10% of the time this year. And he has made a tangible change. He changed his arm slot this year. Not only that, he's changed up his pitch mix a little bit. Has completely ditched his sinker this season, opting to use his 4-seam fastball. It's Aaron Savali we're talking about. And last year, opponents hit 310 off of his sinker. So, I mean, he obviously saw that the sinker was a bad pitch, and he's moved on from it, and he's using his 4-seam fastball. And so far, so good. I mean, I don't know if he's going to keep this up, but can he be a high 3s ERA? Can he be what we think Zach Plesac is at this point? Maybe a high 3s ERA, 1.20 whip, 8 Ks per 9, something like that. Sure. I don't know that Savali is going to be amazing. I think he's probably just going to be solid.
He might be one of those middle-class guys like Pablo Lopez. I could see that. I still don't get the Aaron Savali hype, and I understand he's allowed few hits through 3 starts, and that's great. You banked some good starts with him. But supposedly he reinvented himself, like you said, and yet under the hood, everything looks basically the same. And I know there's more to pitching than swinging strikes and ground balls. I know, but if you focus on swinging strikes and ground balls, you're going to be right more often than not. And we're talking about a guy who nobody likes to talk about it, but he did have a 4.74 ERA last year when all was said and done. It was not a good year. So it's not like he's Kyle Hendricks and he's proven he's not even like Zach Davies in that way, you know? So I'm still skeptical. I'm certainly with you in not thinking there's a especially high ceiling there. Is the floor going to be enough that you're going to be happy rostering him all season? I mean, I'd lean yes, but I'm not as sure as a lot of people seem to be.
I think, and this is coming from someone who liked Savale quite a bit coming in, I think he's going to be a fine SP4, SP5 for your fantasy team. And I don't think he's going to completely crush you. Is he going to carry your team? I don't think that either. I think he's probably a borderline top 40 starting pitcher that is going to be fine. So that's where I'm at on Aaron Savale. No, he's not going to have a sub-3 ERA all season. So if you're looking at that and thinking, man, I got this gem, let's just be a little bit more realistic. I think he's probably a mid to high threes, more of a high threes ERA guy rest of season. The week 4 pitcher and hitter planners presented by Line & Kugels. Of course, you can find Scott's articles on CBSSports.com where he talks about his favorite sleeper hitters and sleeper pitchers heading into week 4. It might be week 3 for some people if you play in a head-to-head league. But Scott, why don't you get us started with some of your favorite 2-start pitchers heading into next week?
This is actually a good week for 2-start pitchers. Last week was too, but last week was a bunch of aces who obviously you weren't sitting. This is a lot of guys the next tier down that maybe you'd have some hesitation, but I'd still lean yes on. So it includes like a Zach Plesac who struggled last time out, Dustin May, who may not give you the innings you like, but looks pretty good, Nathan Eovaldi, Eduardo Rodriguez, even Lance McCullers coming off a bad start and at Colorado for one of the 2 starts. I'd still lean yes on that. He was having some symptoms from being vaccinated, it sounds like, in that most recent start. So that's encouraging to hear. But most of them are already rostered already. The one who isn't is Brad Keller. And Brad Keller got crushed his first 2 starts, but then came back strong in the 3rd start and said he made some mechanical tweaks. We know Brad Keller's a pretty good pitcher. So is he somebody who you're going to... He's a pretty good pitcher, but like in the streamer sense. So I'm not saying you're going to pick him up and use him forever and ever, but 2-start week versus Tampa Bay at Detroit when he seems to be back on track. That sounds pretty good to me. So he's my favorite 2-start sleeper. I mentioned Michael Fulmer versus Pittsburgh versus Kansas City. He's 13% rostered right now. And, it wasn't, yes, it's just 1 start, but there was quite the buildup to that 1 start of him showing signs of coming around again. So never profiled as a big bat misser, but start of his career, he had a couple of very useful seasons in fantasy. And I think he can be that still. I do have Joe Ross as a 2-start sleeper, but that's getting pretty lower on the list. I don't have a lot of confidence in Joe Ross, actually, but his first 2 starts, obviously, the results were good. Gave up some weak contact versus St. Louis at New York Mets. So-so matchups, but I have to recommend some pitchers who are available. So Joe Ross gets lumped in there with those other 2.
Joe Ross does have SPARP eligibility as well for those who play in head-to-head points leagues. And speaking of points leagues, that's probably the only place I would use Brad Keller, Scott, because there is a chance, even going up against Tampa Bay and Detroit, that he could just completely destroy your ratios in a roto or head-to-head categories league. So
yeah, that makes sense.
I might steer clear there on Keller. Fulmer, someone that I am very excited about, spoke about him yesterday. The velocity all the way back to where it was back in 2016 and 2017 when he first came up in the big leagues.
Having said that about Keller, I have my top 10 sleeper pitchers. That's an article that comes. I write 3 articles on Thursdays. It's insane. It's a normal day for Chris Towers, but it's insane for me. And I have Brad Keller as my number 1 sleeper pitcher for this week. So if you're saying no Brad Keller in roto leagues. You're saying no sleeper pitcher in roto leagues, which is probably fine. I mean, hopefully you have good enough pitchers heading into week 4 that you don't have to resort to somebody you're picking up off waivers and starting. That's always the idea, but it's worth underscoring based on your comment there. I also want to mention that Griffin Canning right now, he has the 2 little baseball icons next to him, and it shows up in on the 2-start list in your league. And if he is making 2 starts, he's probably my favorite of that group. One of them would be against Texas, one against Houston. But I'm whenever Ohtani gets inserted back into the rotation, and it sounds like it could be this weekend, that's going to bump everybody back, including Canning. And so I don't want to tell you Canning's a 2-start pitcher and then him not be. But, if he just makes 1 start against Texas, I still think he's a pretty good sleeper.
Last question on the 2-star pitchers, Scott. We just spoke about Chris Paddock, and the Padres do play 7 games next week. So even if he pitches on Tuesday, he would line up for 2 starts. And he's going up against the Brewers and at the Dodgers.
So I tier my 2-start pitcher rankings for the website. I have must start all formats. I have sleepers and questionables. Chris Paddock is the next tier down, which is, I think, like points league only or something. I have him ahead of Michael Fulmer, but I have him behind guys like Jamison Tyone and Jesus Luzardo and Brad Keller. So lean in no on Paddock.
Yeah, points league only. I can get behind that. Hashtag protect the ratios. Scott, some single start pitchers that you are looking at heading into next week that have good matchups. Who are you looking at?
Let's see. Did you say pitchers or hitters? Sorry.
Pitchers, single start pitchers.
Okay. Yeah. So I mentioned Canning, Andrew Heaney, also going against Texas and coming off, I believe it was a 10 strikeout effort. Casey Mize going against the Royals. Like to see more whiffs from him, but he's been effective through 2 starts, and he may just be that kind of pitcher, looking at his minor league track record, who's effective even though he doesn't get strikeouts. Okay, so this is kind of behind Michael Fulmer in terms of how I'd recommend them, which means also behind Chris Paddock. So if you're not planning to start Chris Paddock, you don't need to consider these names. But Danny Duffy at Detroit, we've seen his velocity up, at least in his last start, it was up quite a bit. Dylan Cease at Cleveland. He's supposed to be back after being on the COVID-19 IL. Joe Ross, that's a 2-star pitcher. I already mentioned him. Nick Pivetta versus Seattle, and Robbie Ray at Tampa Bay.
Let's move over to some hitters, Scott. Some sleeper hitters that you are looking at for week 4 who are rostered in less than 75% of leagues.
So somehow Wilson Ramos still is, and the Tigers have the 3rd best matchups this week, according to yours truly. So I think Wilson Ramos needs to be started in all leagues at this point. I have him in my top 12 catcher rankings rest of season, because it's like, who are you showing loyalty to in that range of the catcher rankings, And it's not like he doesn't have a track record. So Wilson Ramos, pretty easy one. Jazz Chisholm, very excited by what we've been seeing from him early on. And the Marlins have the 4th best matchups this week. Adam Eaton, who's at 73% rostered, but I imagine it's much lower on other sites. That seems suspiciously high. White Sox face nothing but righties, so that's good news for him, and he's been hot. The Tigers actually have, I mentioned the Tigers already, they have the 3rd best matchup. So in addition to Wilson Ramos, Jeimer Candelario is off to a good start. I think he's somebody I can recommend. The Phillies are the ones that have the 2nd best matchups. I keep thinking I'm naming the team with the best matchup. It's throwing off my inflection. Anyway, the Phillies have the 2nd best matchups. I do have Andrew McCutchen on this list. He's off to a miserable start, but what do you want? You guys got to be available for me to recommend them. And the Red Sox are the team with the best matchups, actually. And there are 4 lefties on the schedule in a 7-game week, so might not be a bad time to roll the dice on Bobby Dahlbeck, who's a right-handed hitter who does better against lefties, as many of them do. And this might be what gets him going. Might help you make up some ground in the home run category this week if you start him.
I know recently Bobby Dahlbeck had a think it was a 2-hit game that came on Wednesday. So any signs of positivity for Bobby Dahlbeck, we will take right now. Just a reminder, the 5 teams with the best hitter matchups. Scott talked about a few of them already, but the Red Sox are number 1, the Phillies number 2, the Tigers, the Marlins, and the Astros, the 5 teams with the worst hitter matchups for next week. The Yankees, the Padres, the Rangers, the Indians, and the Dodgers. So there you have it. The Week 4 pitcher and hitter planners presented by Line and Kugels. And last week I mentioned the weather is heating up. Well, that's not the case in New York. I can tell you that. It's 50 degrees outside right now. So it's pretty cold. But anyway, what makes me feel like I'm sitting poolside on a warm, sunny day? A Line and Kugel Summer Shandy. It's the awesome blend of crisp beer with refreshing lemonade that fits perfectly when watching a nice game of baseball. And the Summer Shandy isn't all they offer. They also have a Session Helles, which has all the flavor of a crisp German-style beer, but it's only 99 calories. And if you're into IPAs, Line and Kugels offers their Lemon Haze IPA, which is a well-balanced, hazy IPA that blends hops with delicious lemonade. I got to put Heath Cummings on that because I know he's into the IPAs. So no matter what type of beverage you are craving, Line and Kugels has you covered. Just head on over to liney.com. That's LEINIE.com, or follow Line and Kugels on Instagram or Facebook for more information about all the delicious beers they brew. We're going to take a quick break. If you're watching on the video side, don't go anywhere. If you are listening on the audio side, when we come back, we will have prospects to stash here on Fantasy Baseball Today. So, Scott, you mentioned all the articles that you were writing on Thursday. An article that you wrote earlier in the week was prospects to stash. And I think you said it was Friday is the date when teams can call players up and have that extra year of service time, correct?
Saturday
is that.
Saturday is 16 days will have passed. And so, yeah, a team can call up a player and keep him up the rest of the season and still get a 7th year of control, basically, because the first year doesn't end up counting as a full season. So that's, when people talk about service time manipulation, that's usually what they're referring to. There's also Super 2, which is more of a midsummer thing, but that's for the biggest it doesn't come into play quite as much. And it's more of a guessing game. It's not an exact, this date is when it's safe to do it. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to see a bunch of call-ups on Saturday because that's too transparent. There have been too many grievances filed, too much trust lost. And so it's just not safe for teams to do that anymore. But I think next week, certainly have Jared Kelenic and Wander Franco stashed away. And they pretty much are already, at least in CBS leagues. I think there's a good chance we see them as soon as next week. Those are the 2 biggest ones I'm looking at. Those are the 2 that for sure you'd want rostered in every league if they were to get the call. So those are the top 2 on the list.
Yeah, and let's talk about these just in groups of 5. Well, there was 14 that you wrote about on the list, and Jared Kelenic and Wander Franco were up at the top, number 1, number 2, obviously. And Kelenic is 75% rostered on CBS. Wander Franco is 68% rostered. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to add about those guys. They're expected to be awesome when they are called up. The other 3 that I want to highlight here, first and foremost, Sixto Sanchez, Alex Kirilloff, and Joe Adell. Scott, what's the latest on Sixto Sanchez? I know he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and the Marlins are going to be pretty cautious with him.
Yeah, he's shut down for now. He has been back throwing. He has been back throwing only 45 feet. The distance gets longer and longer to build up the arm strength. So he's still a ways away. Originally when he got sit down, we were thinking when they need a 5th starter mid-April, that's when he's going to be back. Now I'm thinking more like mid-May because we know it's going to be a while for Sixto Sanchez, but it's not going to be so long, especially given how proven he already is, that I would be wanting to drop him in all but the shallowest leagues. Kirilloff, we already saw in the doubleheader, which to me is even that's a stronger indication to me that the Twins are going to call him up sooner than later. Because remember, he was awful in spring training. They called him up for the doubleheader when obviously they didn't have to, and they gave him a start. So they still, it seems to me, they still feel pretty good about him. With the way Luis Ariz is going as their leadoff hitter and Josh Donaldson being back where they need a place to play Ariz, I don't know that there's an opening for Kirilloff, but like they got a bunch of old and injury-prone guys. There will be soon enough. I think probably Kirilloff will be up in April at some point and probably stick around for good. If he's as good as he's supposed to be, then that'll probably happen.
Let's talk about this next group of 5. Mackenzie Gore, top pitching prospect in baseball, obviously on the San Diego Padres. Matt Manning of the Tigers. He is one of their big 3 pitching prospects, I would say, along with Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal. Logan Gilbert, who we've mentioned quite a bit recently, of the Seattle Mariners. Bobby Witt with the Kansas City Royals, who had a massive spring. And Dalton Jeffries, who was in the running to be the 5th starter for the Oakland A's heading into the season, but he lost out on that job. Scott, let's just quickly go through each name and give me an ETA guesstimate, if you will. Obviously, look, I'm not going to hold it against you. We're just taking guesses here. But Mackenzie Gore, when do you think we see him?
I think we see Mackenzie Gore mid-May. I wish he didn't have those same control problems in spring training that he apparently had at the alternate training site last year. So that makes me nervous, but I still think he is, other than Sixto Sanchez, of course, the top pitching prospect to stash.
What about Matt Manning?
Matt Manning, I think we'll see him the next time the Tigers have a rotation spot come up. Unless Julio Teheran makes it back and before then. I think as things stand now, Manning's next in line, and that'll probably happen at some point during the first third of the season. So let's say, I don't know, let's say mid-May for him too.
Logan Gilbert?
Now that one, I could see the Mariners holding out until they feel like that Super 2 date has passed, which again is an estimate because you don't really know when the Super 2 date was until years later because it's complicated, but that's how it works. Late June is what I'll guess for him. It's possible he could be up early, but the Mariners I don't think are contenders this year, and I don't think they think they're contenders, so there's no reason to push him.
Bobby Witt hit 289 with 3 home runs in the spring, and there was talk that he was going to make the team out of camp. When do you think we see him in the bigs?
After the All-Star break. It wouldn't be. He's the one that I think could stay healthy all year and not reach the majors this year. The rest of these, I think, will be up in the majors at some point this year. He's the one who could maybe not do that. It's going to depend how quickly he moves, how well he performs at each stop. But he's starting at Class A, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, and not a manual Class A either. Dalton Jeffries with the Oakland A's. He had a great spring. 18 innings pitched, only 3 earned runs, 24 strikeouts. And, I mean, they have Cole Irvin in the rotation, so I kind of feel like this could be pretty soon.
Yeah. Could be Cole Irvin's next turn. It could be, I don't know. Mike Fiers is supposedly working his way back, and I guess they got to see what he has left. But I think Dalton Jeffries gets a turn in the rotation before AJ Puck does. Puck obviously is on the IL right now. I'll say April. I say Jeffries makes his first start in April, late April.
The last 4 on Scott's list of prospects to stash: Nico Horner with the Cubs, Jarren Duran with the Red Sox, Jeter Downs with the Red Sox, and Elliot Ramos of the San Francisco Giants. Scott, just give me one name here, the one that you are most likely to stash. I would assume this is more so in deeper leagues.
Well, based on the way I ranked them, I would have to say Nico Horner because that was the idea. But
sure.
The one I'm most excited to stash actually is Jeter Downs because he's already shortstop eligible. He'll pick up second base. There's a chance he's a base stealer. Good plate discipline, good power. That's probably the one I'm most excited to stash. But he might be delayed longer than some of these others. I will say, I do want to point this out. Nico Horner, there's kind of a magical date for him. They had to send him down for a total of 36 days and then keep him up. They had to send him down for a total of 36 days, and they get an extra year of team control. And that would be at some point in early May. Saturday is 16 days into the season, so 20 days after that. So probably not seeing Horner till May. But I imagine once he's up, he stays up.
And you would think a team that's hitting as bad as the Chicago Cubs are right now, they can use someone like Nico Horner, who, again, I mean, he had some playing time in the majors last year and he didn't really perform with it. So that's fine. But he was crushing it in the spring. And 16,
it was.
34.
He opened up his stance. It seemed to unlock some power that some evaluators always thought he had. He could also be a base stealer. So he could just be Nick Madrigal, or he could be more magical than Nick Madrigal.
David Bodie, just for reference, is batting 107 with a 426 OPS for the Cubs. And Eric Sogard is batting 136 with a 409 OPS. So not really sure what else the Cubs need to see, but sounds a lot like service time manipulation to me. Let's recap the rest of Thursday's action, Scott. Ronald Acuna, he's pretty good. I don't really know that we need to say anything else other than that, but he hit his league-leading 7th home run. He's batting 442 with a 1492 OPS. Seemingly the only player who's hitting for your Atlanta Braves right now. So at least they're Dansby Swanson.
Season is young.
Dansby Swanson off to a very slow start. Some people have talked about dropping Dansby Swanson. Do not do that. Do not drop Dansby Swanson. He picked up 3 hits on Thursday, including a double and an RBI. Jake Cronenworth, he's been really good lately. He had a 2x4 on Thursday. What the heck is that? 2 doubles, 2 runs, 2 RBI, and 2 walks. And he added a steal for good measure. Scott, should you try and, I don't know that you'll be able to get anything for Cronenworth, but should you try and sell him before Tatis is back, with the concern that Cronenworth is going to share some time with Kim, or do you just think Cronenworth?
Well, that hasn't happened. He started every game, I'm pretty sure. I looked into that earlier, and I think it was every single game. Cronenworth has started, lefties, righties. Hosmer has sat out in favor of Cronenworth. So, no, I don't worry about that. I don't know who Cronenworth is yet. He's striking out a lot less. Right now, he looks like David Fletcher. I know David Fletcher doesn't look like David Fletcher right now, but, get in your mind what David Fletcher is, and that's what Jake Cronenworth looks like right now, and that's a solid contributor. But he showed maybe the capacity for more power last year than Fletcher. Hasn't really shown that yet this year, but that you can hold out some hope for that. I guess I'm saying I like Cronenworth more than Fletcher.
Jake Cronenworth has a 7% strikeout rate as of now.
Mm-hmm.
His expected slugging is 371. So you're right. He's really not hitting for any power right now. Marco Gonzalez was at the Orioles. He finally had a decent start. 5 innings pitch of 2-run ball with 5 strikeouts. Scott, was this enough for you to hold on to Marco Gonzalez? He's 77% rostered.
I don't know that needs to go up. I think that's about right. I think certainly the Rogers and Rotans would be picked up over him. But give me somebody a little lower down we've been talking about.
How about Kikuchi, his teammate?
I'd rather have him than Gonzalez.
How about Michael Fulmer?
No.
How about Huascar Ynoa?
I'd stick with Gonzalez over Ynoa.
All right. That seems like a pretty fair range. He's probably a top 60-ish starting pitcher then, around there.
Yeah, I'm confident he's going to be useful. We just know that particularly in the shallow leagues, particularly early in the season, when somebody who you could live without gives you an excuse to drop him, it's kind of nice, And his first 2 starts were so bad that I don't know that excuse to drop him. Like, I think you could still get away with dropping him, I guess, if you need to.
Sticking with the Mariners, Mitch Haniger hit 2 home runs across their doubleheader on Thursday. He's now up to 4 home runs for the season. He's batting .321 with a .956 OPS. You love to see it, man. Mitch Haniger, he's dealt with so many injuries, so really happy for him that he's getting back on track this early in the season. Justin Dunn, the other pitcher in the doubleheader for the Mariners at the Orioles, 5 innings of 1-run ball, 6 strikeouts, 12 whiffs on 68 pitches. Fastball velocity is up 3 miles per hour from where it was last season. He was at 91. This year he's at 94. He's 6% rostered, Scott. Any interest in Justin Dunn?
Well, this is the first time in a long time I've been interested in Justin Dunn. He did walk 8 in his previous start, and I think it was like 6.4 per 9 last year. So it's going to take more than just this one start. But yeah, it's nice seeing the velocity up. It's nice seeing him get 12 whiffs on 68 pitches. It's going to take more than this, though.
You said, did he really have 8 walks in his last start, Scott?
Well, now you're making me doubt myself.
No, he did. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
That number sounded so absurd. I was like, did he really have 8 walks? And yeah, he did. So not really much there yet with Justin Dunn, but obviously AL only. Put him on your radar in deeper leagues, but I wouldn't add him just yet. Eddie Rosario went 1 for 3 with a walk and 2 steals on Thursday. He is up to 3 stolen bases for the season.
What's that about? He's never had more than 11 before.
Scott, are you reading my notes? Because that's the exact thing that I had written down.
Right. I made my own notes.
That's
all right.
Professional. He's a professional. Who needs Frank's notes? I just spend like 6 hours making this rundown. Yasmani Grandal went 0 for 4. He is batting 133. Scott, we were getting questions about dropping Grandal. Would you drop Grandal for Wilson Ramos?
That's actually a little below the Ramos line for me. I could see like in a 10-team 1-catcher league doing it because just always play the hot hand at catcher, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not advise that for most people. I think Grandal's gonna be just fine.
Lance Lynn, he's pretty good going up against Cleveland. 6 innings of 2-run ball, 10 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 14 whiffs on 93 pitches. Lynn has allowed 2 earned runs with 2 walks and 27 strikeouts over his first 3 starts. So if you had any concern over Lance Lynn, you should not. Should you have concern over Andrew Vaughn? Well, we talk about him every day. Why don't we do it again? He went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. They're trying to get him going, Scott. They're starting him, but nothing is happening. So
I can't imagine what has prevented him from getting going to this point. Can't imagine. By the way, I wasn't here to talk about this yesterday. Carlos Rodon's no-hitter. You were asking me to comment on it. The most amazing observation I had, I could give you from that game, is that Andrew Vaughn was in left field for the 9th inning.
Chris talked about that. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
What in the world?
You know what's even more
in the world? They had 4 DHs in the lineup, basically.
Yeah.
They had Collins catching.
I thought that's what you were going to point out, is that the White Sox have had 2 no-hitters over the past 2 seasons. Yasmani Grandal, who's supposed to be, he is a great pitch framer. He didn't catch either one of them.
Wow.
So I found that interesting. So
that is interesting.
Are we one step closer to dropping Andrew Vaughn, Scott? It's hard to hold on at this point. It's just not doing anything, even when he plays.
I guess one step closer. I don't know. It really depends on the depth of the league. It depends on the format of the league too, because you're talking a points league. It's really hard to have any reserve hitters, and because you just need so many pitchers, and the rosters are so small. So yeah, fine, drop him in that format. You can't start him if the hitter's not good enough for you to start. It's really hard to roster in that particular format. But if you're talking a roto lineup, where you don't need a bench full of hitters, I'd rather hold out for the upside, because the playing time's coming. Like I guess I don't really get stashing like a Wander Franco and not holding on to Andrew Vaughn, right? That doesn't totally add up to me.
I just think there's a chance that if he continues to struggle, they can send him back to the alternate training site. But
well, sure, there's a chance.
You should hold him on. You should hold on to him until that happens. Hopefully,
it's about stashing upside, just like you would if you're waiting for a prospect to arrive. We thought he was going to. He hasn't. He has technically arrived, but the arrival has been, stilted. So
crap. I think the word we're looking for is crap.
Well,
that's what
the biggest problem is that he hasn't played regularly enough.
Yeah. So it's hard to get in a rhythm when you're not playing all the time. In a points league, I agree. I think you could drop him. In deeper leagues, any roto format, or if you play in a deeper points league, I think you should still hold on to Andrew Vaughn. Josh Harrison had 2 more hits on Thursday. I know it's weird. I'm talking about Josh Harrison. Whatever. It's that point in the podcast. He has 8 hits, not hips. He has 8 hits over the first 4 games of the season. He is 3% rostered, so in the deepest of league. Carson Kelly went 2 for 4 on Thursday. He hit his 2nd home run of the season. 63% rostered was actually much higher than I thought for Carson Kelly, but he's off to a nice start. Victor Robles batting 9th again. a check in the column for one Scott White, who was not buying it in the spring. Victor Robles, it went 0 for 2 with a walk on Thursday. He has been quite bad. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we talked about the launch angle for him on yesterday's podcast. Well, he said, take this for launch angle, and he hit his third home run of the season. He went 3 for 4. Kind of looks like the Vlad breakout is currently happening. Rowdy Tellez went 2 for 4. He now has 6 hits over his last 4 games. I dropped him in a 15-team Roto League this week. It's been a rough week for your boy because I dropped Rowdy Tellez in one league and I dropped Adam Duvall in another. So, yay, go me. Ryan McMahon, he hit his 6th home run of the season, and it came off of Julio Urias, some lefty-on-lefty action. I'm kind of excited about Ryan McMahon, Scott. He's playing every day. He's striking out less than ever before. He's hitting more fly balls than ever before.
Yeah. That's basically it. Now, the last time we checked in on Ryan McMahon, or at least I checked in on him, that was after his 3-homer game. And the strikeout rate, well, gosh, it was so early in the season. He had 3 strikeouts at that point. But then he went 4 straight games without striking out, and suddenly his strikeout rate looks amazing. So there's a little bit of early season math there with the strikeout rate, obviously, but if Ryan McMahon is going to be good, this is what it would look like. Maybe it's happening. I'm keeping an open mind.
I'm pretty hyped. I picked him up in the podcast league with the team that I share with Adam. And obviously Adam had no input in us picking him up, but I'll just take all the credit there. The Dodgers have played 11 games. Justin Turner has multiple hits in 7 of them. He hit his 4th home run on Thursday. So far, so good for Justin Turner. But you know the deal. He's older. He's probably going to get hurt at some point. If you can flip Justin Turner for someone that you think has higher upside, I would definitely look into doing that.
Well, did you see the Dodgers lineup tonight, Frank? Because, Justin Turner sat out 3 times already, and we were worried about that. Corey Seager sat out tonight. Mookie Betts, his 3rd game back, sat out.
They're being really cautious early in the season.
They're Greg Popovich, right? He's the guy in the NBA.
Who's that, Scott?
We know we're going to be there at the end. So why tax these players now? I don't know. I don't think he'll keep that going all season. I think that's something that's easier to do in April than July. But yeah, it's a little. You don't like seeing it.
You do not. You hate to see it, as the kids say, Scott. The call to the pen. We spoke about the Mariners. Kendall Graveman picked up the save in Game 1 of the Mariners doubleheader. Yada yada. Scott Service said the hitters lined up better to use Montero in the 6th, Graveman in the 7th. If you play in a category league or a deeper league, I would be looking to add Kendall Graveman, especially if you have Rafael Montero. You might want to just handcuff those 2 together. For Cleveland, Nick Wickren was used in the 7th, James Karinchak in the 8th. Karinchak did face the heart of the lineup, the 3, 4, and 5 hitters, and Emmanuel Clase was used in the 9th. He allowed an unearned run, but did pick up his 3rd save of the season. Stephon Crichton pitched in the 9th for the D-backs when they were up 11-6. I don't know if that matters, but just thought I would tell you guys.
Yep.
For the Royals, Scott Barlow had a 2-inning save. He came in the 8th, got through the inning in 6 pitches, and so they just left him out there for the 9th. Greg Holland was warming up in the 9th inning. I think it was Marcus Semien hit a single, so they started warming up Holland. I don't think there's a closer in Kansas City, but maybe somebody will emerge. Let's just wrap up with a few emails here, Scott. We haven't got to many emails lately, so I apologize to you, the listeners and viewers out there. This one's from Luke. In the spirit of the Carlos Rodon sell high discussion from yesterday's podcast. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit too, Scott. I'd like to throw an offer that I have on the table now for your insight. 10-team Dynasty Daily Points League. Keep all players in perpetuity. No contracts, 10 hitters, 7 pitchers, 8 bench spots, 9 minor league spots. Give up Carlos Rodon and Matt Chapman for Jesus Luzardo.
Okay,
Dynasty
the Dynasty angle makes it interesting because if you just look at my rest of season rankings, Luzardo's further ahead of Rodon than I thought. Yeah, I think a Dynasty league, and it being such a shallow league, 10 teams, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As great as Rodon has looked, he has a bunch of injuries in his history, and Matt Chapman
Sorry, that
is.
was a cough. Sorry.
Uh,
Came on suddenly.
I didn't know if you were scoffing at my.
No, I wasn't.
What is? Does Frank even know?
Wanted to clarify. Yeah.
This next one's from McGarry. Grade to trade. Give up. Oh, this is a big one. Give up Jose Barrios, Francisco Mejia, Reese Hoskins, Brent Honeywell, and a first-round pick. Get back Ronald Acuna, Yadier Molina, and a third-round pick. This is a 25-keeper dynasty league.
Well, if you're going to trade for Acuna in a dynasty league with that little turnover, you got to pay out the nose for him. And frankly, I think the ask could have been much worse than this. I think you did well for yourself. I will give this an A.
Okay. I was thinking B+, but maybe I'm just.
Well, we don't like Honeywell and Mejia might be valueless. And
that is definitely fair. Definitely.
Or they might become something, but I think the odds are against them becoming something at this point. So it's almost Barrios and Hoskins for Acuna and Molina, and then a downgrade and pick. That's an easy call.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And the downgrade and pick isn't even that much. It's going from a first to a third rounder. So, all right, you talked me into it. I'll bump it up to an A-. This last one's from Terry, 12-team points league. Jonathan India is now second base eligible. I had him at third with Cabrian Hayes back. With Cabrian Hayes out. When Hayes is back, do I cut Jonathan India or Gavin Lux, who was not in the lineup on Thursday?
And Lux, since we waxed poetically about him, that's become like our favorite expression on the podcast this year. Since we did that, he's been pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. So I'd lean Lux, actually. 12-team league. I'd lean Lux. I'd lean dropping Lux for Hayes. Maybe it'll change by the time Hayes comes back, but the way things look right now, I'd rather have India than Lux.
It's early in the season. There's a lot changing, a lot going on. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Frank, thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again on Monday. Bye-bye.